is this right here. One of the more established Assassin's Creed creators in the space, the hidden one, posted a video called "The Decline of Assassin's Creed Storytelling." I want to check this video out, so let's watch this. We'll react to it. As always, when it comes to reactions, always show support and love to the original creator. I am not the one who made this content, so do not react to me as someone who is making this content. I do reaction videos to do a long-winded reply to the creator. My reactions are more so just replies, because I don't want to just put a 3-paragraph thing into the freaking comments. I'd rather just make a video where I'm able to just yap all I want. So a lot of the times my reactions are actually 10 minutes longer than the actual video because we're just doing so much freaking talking. But in general, show the hate one some love. The original video will be linked in the description box below as well in the Twitch chat. So watch the original video, leave him a like, a comment, all that good stuff. Look at his other videos if you want to, and if you like what he posts, give him a subscription. So we're gonna check this out and see what his opinion on the decline of Assassin's Creed storytelling.
To have a serious conversation about the writing in Assassin's Creed, but more specifically the past 4 Assassin's Creed games. And before anybody starts typing up angry comments, let me just say this is just my opinion. I'm not speaking for anybody else. I've been playing this franchise since early, and watching the way the writing has fallen off has been nothing but frustrating and disappointing. Because, if you go back to the older games from around 2007 to even 2017, the focus of those games was very evidently on storytelling. Yes, some of them weren't the best, but there was a real effort to deliver a...
I think when it comes to the decline of the storytelling, I think it's attached to the change in format. I mean the kind of game Assassin's Creed were. Back in the day, these were just action games, and now it's pretty much it, just action adventure games. Whereas now they're open world RPGs. I think when game developers switch to an open world format, they get lazy with storytelling because they're trying to just fill up the world itself with other shit and miscellaneous tasks and side quests and all this other stuff, to where they get lazy with their writing and they get lazy with connecting. Part of why people love Witcher 3 is because even the side quests seem like they was as important and as big of a deal as the main quest. Everyone, when they talk about this situation, they'll talk about the Bloody Baron quest. People were that was a side quest. If you played Witcher 3 and you think about that quest, or if you think he was talking about the Witcher 3, that quest plays it's a side quest, but it plays out and it's so long and extended and well written and well acted, where you be like, yo, is this a DLC or is this a main? No, this is just a side quest. You don't have to do this at all. And that's how a lot of the Witcher quests are, even in Witcher 2. I don't have memory of Witcher 1, so I can't really say about Witcher 1. I don't have memory of it. A general point is, when game developers switch to being an open world, they tend to get lazy with their storytelling. Assassin's Creed's story, in my opinion, has never been terrible until around Unity, where it just seemed like it was just super inconsistent and it felt like they weren't committed to what they wanted to do. And then obviously with the ending, not the game itself, the ending of Assassin's Creed 3, where they killed off Desmond with zero freaking plans afterwards, where again, I stated in the video before that I've done, that if Ubisoft wanted to do right by Desmond and right by that decision, they should have freaking made Desmond's son the new main character of the real life, not real life, the real world portion of Assassin's Creed instead of Layla. They would have had a way better chance of having success from that standpoint. But outside of that, other than Origins, because we're going to take Origins out of this, every of the last couple Assassin's Creed games, the stories have been pretty rough. I like Shadows, and Shadows, in my opinion, does have good story moments, but it gets long-winded, like this Yacht session is, and just the way they do mission structures kind of hurt the game overall as well. Valhalla was utter ass. Odyssey was playable. It had its moments, but it also kind of was just a little lazy.
Character-driven story. You had the main protagonist going through a clear journey, and every single mission felt like it actually pushed the plot forward. I mean, look at Ezio's life across Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and then Revelations. That's, in my opinion, one of the best character evolutions in gaming. Altair went...
I will say, jumping in here, Ezio shouldn't be counted in this situation because he had 3 games. It's very, very rare for anyone Assassin's Creed to get more than 1 freaking game. Even Altair, only had one console game. He has some handheld games, but that no one played, and he has like story moments inside of Ezio's games, you know, because they're trying to like follow the lineage of Ezio, not Ezio of Altair. And even when it comes to like Mirage, Altair's ancestors in Mirage, you know, Roshan is related to Altair. I don't know if it's like a grandmother, a great grandmother. I don't know how many. I don't remember how many years between the two games, but Roshan is related to Altair. Anyways, but I wouldn't count Ezio as being like when it comes to this. Not to say that he's wrong or anything about like that, but just he had 3 games that have story, that have character development. I think if you have 3 games for one character, you should have a lot of development, because if you don't, that would be even a bigger sin to like how bad the writing has gotten for these games.
From arrogant rookie to a more reflective and knowledgeable character. It's simple stuff, yes, but it's effective. I mean, even Connor and Haytham's chemistry in Assassin's Creed 3, it gave that specific story so much personality. Syndicate and Unity, I mean, 2 stories I wasn't really much of a fan of, but at least those stories were focused and were written to tell a tale about the protagonists. Now, fast forward to the modern Assassin's Creed games, so that's mainly Odyssey, Valhalla and Shadows. These games still open strong.
Everything you love about selling on StockX just got better. Introducing StockX Balance, the new way to store your earnings.
Ubisoft knows how to create prologues that pull you in. The first few hours often introduce a great backstory or a conflict that makes you want to see what happens next. And then the whole thing just flatlines. Instead of building momentum and creating an engaging story, the story drops you into this giant map with a bunch of
Which goes into what I said before about the issue being open world. The reason why there's this big drop off because it goes from you having this, you know, linear experience of the story and then the character to boom, here you go. Look at this open ass world. Go do this, go do this, go do this, go over there. You see that mark over there? You go over there too. Go do all of this stuff right now. Where it's like in the older Assassin's Creed games, you didn't really start doing the open world air quote stuff until maybe like at the like 2 or 3 missions. And you're like, all right, well, we kind of have free time now. Let's just go ahead and because I want to. I don't have to, but because I want to, let me just go find all the viewpoints. Like that was it. You know, whereas like with these the more recent games, it's like here's a cinematic, here's a badass, you know, couple minutes that you just run through and body people, and now you're in this big ass open world. Here's my just freaking side quest. Here's all this word vomit on your freaking screen of like prompts and things like that. It's just here's the tutorial on how the menu system works. Here's a tutorial on how the point system works. Here's a tutorial on how this works. Here's all the codexes. And oh, by the way, here's your murder board. Go find these people, take them out.
targets on an objective board, or in Assassin's Creed Valhalla's case, a metric shit ton of regions to form alliances with, and you don't have to do them in the correct order, not that there is one. And to me, that's where everything falls apart. Here's why. When a story is non-linear, characters cannot actually grow or evolve. Say you fight target A before you fight target B. This means the writers cannot let target B reference target A's death whatsoever. If you can meet character X before meeting character Y, then the dialogue cannot change depending on who you met first. So the game plays it safe.
Think about it this way, give you an example. Mass Effect. Imagine playing Mass Effect 1. Imagine if you can kill Saren before you kill Benezia. It'd be freaking confusing as fuck. You'd be thrown off. The dialogue wouldn't make any sense what freaking work. How would you connect other things if you did one before the other? The game would end in the first 10 seconds if you can kill Sovereign before anything else even happens. You know, so like just the connection there. Like imagine playing, you can use any Mass Effect game for that matter, to be honest with you. Like imagine playing like Mass Effect 2 and let's say you just kill the elusive man when he freaking invites you over. It's like, oh, that's the end of the game. But they're like, no, you still gotta go do these things with the collectors and things like that. It's like you can find any like single player game where this will make sense, where it's like you need to have connections between the story, between the plot, between the characters and all the NPCs and the villains. It all has to have some kind of, you know, circular motion towards it. You know, and if you want to have some kind of like open form of dialogue, you can, but it has to be told in a better way than how Assassin's Creed tells it.
Protagonists basically stay frozen in time, as in their personality, their growth, until you ticked every box. That's simply an absolutely horrendous way to write a story. There is absolutely no development, there's no emotional build-up whatsoever, and
thus you end up not caring about any of the characters. You tell a story the way that they've told the stories for the last few Assassin's Creed games, you don't remember anyone's freaking names because you just don't care. You have not grown attached to anyone. You know, when you played the first 3 games, the first, 4 games, we'll stick with the first 3. Excluding obviously Revelations and what you call Brotherhood. We're counting those 2 as part of Ezio. So they're within AC2. So more so just the first 3 protagonists. They were doing Gaeton, Altair, and Ezio. Every character you meet throughout those games, if you play those games, obviously, you remember because they were always around. You remember Da Vinci because he was always around. They had a whole plot in story around Da Vinci, so he became your bro, And then think about, like, even when it comes to Desmond in the real world, you remember Rebecca, you remember freaking what's her name? I forgot her freaking name. Christian Bale's character. Then you also remember freaking the wisecracker British dude. You remember those characters. Their names are freaking blanked on me, other than Rebecca, because I think last time I freaking played Assassin's Creed 2, Rebecca was talking to me. But like the general point there is like you don't. I don't know who the fuck that is. You could put characters on my screen from freaking Valhalla and be like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that, like, even when it comes to like just your actual companion characters, like I don't remember any of those people's names. Like her adoptive brother, because like Eivor in canon is a woman, and she becomes adopted by freaking the head of the freaking little wolf clan dude. Again, don't know his character because who gives a fuck? You didn't make a good enough story for me to care about the freaking characters, and there's 1,000 of them to care about to begin with. So it's like, who cares? Whereas think about, again, a more linear experience, when you play Witcher about, Yorvith, about Yennefer and Triss and, obviously Ciri and Vesemir, and like all these characters. You play Mass Effect, Liara and Garrus, Tali, so on and so on and so on. Captain Anderson, the Sorry Dalatras. Like you can keep going because it's a more focused narrative where you can develop some form of connection and relationship to those characters. Like again, I'll use the Asari Dalatras for an example. When you play Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, out of the 3 council members, she's the only one who's not an asshole. Like the Tyrion dude is a complete dick. He's like a complete asshole. The Solarian, I forgot her name, it's in my head, but I just can't get it out. She's kind of like, sometimes you're like, fuck you. But the Asari Dalatras is like always like level-headed and calm and respectful, and she always tries to like help Shepard behind the other two's back. You can't say, well, the one time where she's like very, very obvious with her like up front with her helping was when Thessia was in danger and she needed your help because Thessia is her home world. But even outside of that, she's always trying to be a little more open-minded towards Shepard. So you grow to like the character. That's called development. These last few Assassin's Creed games, they don't have that. And I feel like also part of that is the lack of real world characters in the game. Like again, I mentioned how AC2 all had Brotherhood. So all had Da Vinci. Even when it comes to AC3, what it did to Gaeton, he had a litany of freaking American historical figures to talk to. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, so on. It just kept going from there. Even when it comes to Syndicate, you had Charles Dickinson and Darwin. Like there's a lot of historical characters. I don't remember any historical characters from this damn game. I don't remember anything about this game other than Eivor's name. I don't remember shit about this game. This over 100-hour long game that I forced myself to beat because it was complete ass. In my opinion, the only bad at AC game. I don't remember a damn thing. Even with Shadows, I like Shadows. I don't remember any character in that game's name other than Naoe and Hanzo and Yosuke. We just played that game a few days ago to DLC. And I couldn't tell you what freaking her mom's name was.
Most importantly, there's no payoff until the very end, and then when the end comes, it's always underwhelming. And I know you guys watching this feel this way too. This is referred to as the villain of the week problem. It's a real term, by the way. Every region is its own little side story, so you
I know we're pausing early here. Villain of the week is a very, very common American thing we do in basically like action comic style television. Like Smallville had villains of the week. Every single week of Smallville, there's a new villain that Clark Kent and his team need to deal with. You watch the CW, you watch the Flash. Every single episode of the Flash, Barry Allen and Team Flash had a different villain to deal with. That's kind of like how American, I don't know how it works in other countries, but American television is how we tell our stories when it comes to like action content. Even if like it wasn't until like anime really where you started to see more bridged forms of storytelling where it's like, hey, guess what, dum-dums? This same person's going to be here next week as well. So that's why you saw like Americans complain about with anime. It was like, yo, why the hell is the Namek Saga freaking this long? The Namek Saga is like one day, but it lasts like freaking 80 episodes. Why? It's like because they're telling you a full-on story and not each week there's a new goddamn freaking person for Goku to freaking fight. You can use that with any anime, but like for Americans, though, we were used to, you know, a villain of the week where it's like this week Clark Kent's fighting, you know, Sean Ashmore who took his powers. Next week Clark Kent is freaking dealing with Lex Luthor. Next week he's dealing with another student who has mystical powers that has gone AWOL or crazy, so on and so on and so on.
NPC, you take out the local big bad guy, you collect a nugget of lore, and then you move on. Do that 10 times and congratulations, you finished the main goddamn story. This would be fine as side content, but when it's the actual backbone of the game, it just gets so repetitive. And by the way, if you're wondering which games I'm mainly referring to here, it's basically just Valhalla and Shadow, since they're the two most recent mainline entries. I'm not going to count Mirage in this instance because that was more of an attempt at a smaller linear style project from a studio that's never handled a mainline Assassin's Creed game before. Even then, Mirage still fell into the usual Ubisoft formula with generic targets on a board that nobody really cares about. Still, I won't be too hard on them as I will be towards Ubisoft Quebec and Montreal. But going back to non-linearity, Valhalla has plenty of examples. I mean, look at the Fulke and Sigurd storyline. I thought that storyline was genuinely great. It gave the game direction. But you see, halfway through, Ubisoft just puts it on hold. They park it. You're forced to spend hours upon hours clearing out random regions with their own isolated plots before the main story picks back up. You know, I came across a Reddit post quite recently about just how much filler Valhalla has, and it honestly opened up my eyes. Check this out. 65% of Assassin's Creed Valhalla's arcs are filler. That means they add nothing to the main story with Eivor, Basim or Sigurd. That's ridiculous. Stretching out playtime like that is not good design. Now compare that to other open world games with smaller budgets, if not lower, and those open world games had linear stories like The Witcher 3, Ghosts of Tsushima. Those games respect your time, and they are also made by big AAA studios. But the difference is clear. Ubisoft runs on a business model focused on squeezing revenue, right up there with EA and Nintendo. The other studios I just mentioned from those other games, well, they're game developers first. That's the gap. It's a harsh truth, but it's reality. Why do you think Assassin's Creed Valhalla has made the most money for Ubisoft? It's ridiculed with microtransactions. Compare the first year of Assassin's Creed Valhalla to what it is now. It's absolutely night and day. To Ubisoft, that alone is enough reason for them to keep making these games with half-assed stories. But going back to Valhalla, by the time you go through all those filler arcs I just talked about and then finally return to Sigurd's story, that sense of urgency is gone. It's like the game just hit pause for 40 to 50 hours and then just casually press play again. And Assassin's Creed Shadows has its own version of this problem. When I made this video on screen about my 100-hour experience with the game, I kind of fell into a trap I regret. I said I liked the story, but man was I wrong. That was recency bias talking. I did not give myself enough time to really sit with it and analyze it, because I made that video instantly the moment I rolled credits. But now that it's been 6 months since Assassin's Creed Shadows came out, I can look at it with clearer eyes. I think the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows is not good whatsoever. Opinions can change, and that's one of them. But in regards to Shadows, the idea of having two main protagonists sounds pretty cool, right? But you see, when you split the spotlight between Naue and Yasuke, neither one of them gets enough depth, and once the game tosses them into the non-linear target board, both Naue and Yasuke feel stuck in place. The funny part is, the best parts of Shadows are actually the linear personal stories. I'm talking about the flashbacks with Yasuke and Naoe, which kind of proves the point. Linear writing just works better. And it's not just pacing either. This structure kills relationships. In Assassin's Creed 2, Ezio and Leonardo da Vinci became genuine friends because the story had space to build on their bond over time. Imagine if Assassin's Creed 2 was written by this modern Ubisoft, especially Ubisoft Quebec, and the way Shadows is. You could jump straight to Venice after the prologue, so Leonardo could not be a long-term ally. He'd probably just be a side character you would meet once and then never see again. That's basically how modern Assassin's Creed feels. Because characters pop in, they serve their little moment and then vanish forever. So yeah, that's the big shift. The older games had a spine. Each sequence you played mattered, and each assassination on a story-related character brought you closer to the end. Now it's all about giant...
Each interaction you had mattered. Like, not even just like, even when it comes to like the small, like miscellaneous quests of old Assassin's Creed games, you were drawn to every person you met because the game made them seem like they mattered. You just showed, you know, AC3 with Donny Gaeton. And during that game, you pretty much build a community around the Davenport mansion. And every person you meet building that community, you grow attached to. Because the game gives them missions after mission where you're getting connected to them. You're learning about them and their personality and you know, who, you know, they know and things like that. Whereas with, you know, Shadows, for example, the most recent one, it has this, you know, the people of, you know, insert location, but you don't grow an attachment towards those people. They just, hey, for this NPC, we need you to kill 100 bandits. And after you're done doing that, go talk to them and they'll say, hey, thanks, and give you some reward, and that's it. You don't build a connection to those characters. Even when it comes to how the game does romance, I'll give you an example with Yasuke. Yasuke can kind of have like a romantic situation with, I think it was Lady Nini, but they never like really go full in with it. It's like a good way to make people who are, you know, fans of Yasuke is to like allow him to have you know, that chance with relationships where like that character, your relationship choice, becomes a focal point of your storytelling, if that makes sense.
Do whenever. The trick is, it looks like freedom on paper, but no, it's not. And that's why even if some of these set pieces are great, the overall story just feels so much weaker.
It was Lady Oichi, not Nini.
To understand why Assassin's Creed stories feel so weak now, you've got to look at what made the older ones hit so hard. And it all has to do with the structure and the right people behind the wheel. Let's start with the writers. Back in the day, Ubisoft had what you could call their narrative A-team. There's of course the man himself, Patrice Désilets, aka the creator of Assassin's Creed. I made a video going more in depth on his importance, so check it out if you want. There were the writers, so Darby McDevitt, Corey May, Joshua Rubin, Jeffrey Yohelem, and a handful of other senior writers who may or may not have turned into literal criminals, but we'll not get into that. But they were the ones shaping the lore. These were the people who literally built Assassin's Creed from the grounds up. The Ezio trilogy, the Desmond saga, the lore of the Isu, the modern day components. Some of these writers were Ivy League educated, seriously high IQ storytellers. I'm talking about Harvard, that type of educated. And you can tell, those early stories had cohesion and also recurring themes. You knew there was always going to be a bigger picture, and it all came from having strong narrative leadership. You can then look at the games after Syndicate. Most of the real talent was gone at that point, or starting to go. Ubisoft started shuffling writing duties between different teams, with no real continuity or long-term vision, and it shows. Why the hell are multiple Ubisoft studios making mainline Assassin's Creed games at the same time? Quebec, Montreal, Bordeaux, Singapore, it should not work like that. No other studio...
There's a saying in America when it comes to that situation. It's a very, very outdated saying, and that saying is there's too many Indians in the kitchen. There's too many Indians, not enough chiefs. Then there's the other one that's more, you know, appropriate, which is, you know, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's how that one goes. So too many cooks in the kitchen. The thought process there is, if you have too many people working on your game, you can't focus that idea entirely. You can't focus what you're trying to do entirely because there's just too many people. There's too many people. Part of why Clair Obscur works, and Clair Obscur has 4 people from Ubisoft. Part of why that game works the way it works because of storytelling is it's a small team. Part of what made Halo work when it came to the initial Halo game and Halo 2 was Bungie was a small team. I'm not saying you have to have a small team, but when you have 3 studios making one game, you get a disconnected game. Because those 3 studios all have different ideologies and different thought processes. It's like, let's say you make a movie. Let's say your movie is 3 hours long. And each hour of that movie has a different director. That movie won't make any fucking sense. It will be all over the place. You'd be like, what is this story? What's going on with the plot? What is going on with the characters? In this movie, this character was going to do this. We got all about that. And then the next movie, they're not doing anything about that at all. In this movie, this person will seem like they're going to be like a romantic option for this other person. You notice what I just described there? I just described Star Wars. Except it's only 2 directors instead of 3. The issue with the last 3 movies of Star Wars when it comes to the trilogies was that they changed directors 3 times, going back to the first director on the last one. In the first movie, they had J.J. Abrams, and everyone was happy about the movie. It was like, oh, this is so good. The future is bright with Star Wars. This is such a good movie. Finn might be a freaking Jedi. This is so cool. And then J.J. Abrams left Star Wars, and they hired Rian Johnson to do the second episode. And seemingly everything about the first movie was not part of the second movie, and it made no fucking sense. It was a shitty film. And because it was a shitty movie, what happened? Rian Johnson left. They brought back J.J. Abrams. So the third movie was again all over the place. Didn't really make any sense. Had no connection to like the first 2 movies. It's like, what the hell is going on here? It's the same thing with game development. If you have too many freaking cooks in the kitchen, you're gonna have issues. Because first of all, they're all not under the same head. You have a creative director. You have you're just your director. You think about the Souls games as Miyazaki. Miyazaki is a guy everyone has to listen to. Think about BioWare when it came to Mass Effect. Everyone had to listen to Casey Hudson. Not this other 20 other people, not someone from freaking EA Tribune, not someone from freaking EA Canada, not someone from freaking the Dragon Age team, not someone from freaking the team doing Skate. No, it was just Casey Hudson. Casey Hudson is the one in charge. That's it. So those 3 Mass Effect games made sense for 3 straight games because it was all under one team. Like, yes, there was 2 teams for BioWare, but one team did Mass Effect, one team did Dragon Age. They didn't overlap. And when they did overlap, we got Veilguard. It kind of just, I like Veilguard, but it is a mess. And part of why it's a mess is 2 things. EA keep canceling the freaking game and telling them to remake it. And 2, that overlap between 2 studios who don't make the same fucking kind of game. Ubisoft can't have the people who make The Division also working on freaking Assassin's Creed, also working on freaking Rayman and Rabbids or whatever the fuck. You can't do that. It has to be a dedicated team who knows the entirety of the source material and things of that nature and going from there.
Does this or really does this, but the reason is simple: money. Ubisoft, as I said, is a revenue driven company, so pumping out Assassin's Creed every year takes priority over quality. Whether the writing is weak or the passion is gone, they don't care, as long as it sells well. We can celebrate that Assassin's Creed Shadows did well and hooray, but if you think about it, should we really be celebrating this? It only encourages them to keep doing what they're doing, and it's not a coincidence that—
I know we just freaking finished going on the Yap session, we just paused. But that is exactly why Shadows exists. That is exactly why Odyssey exists. That is exactly why Valhalla exists. They came out with Origins. We fucking loved Origins. It was just complete, some of the most universal praise from the community, period. Like, the community has always been, up and down on whether or not this is or isn't a good Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed 3, people like, yeah, it's a good game. No, it's a bad game. Syndicate, yeah, it's a good game. Yeah, no, it's a bad game. People always been inconsistent. Origins was damn near like universally loved by the AC community, and it showed when it came to like the money it made and all the press that it got when it comes to the media. And what did Ubisoft do? They went, okay, keep making these open world games and just rush them out. Odyssey came out, which is still a good game. We started to see some cracks. Valhalla came out and it was like, oh, this is ass. And then Shadows came out.
the great writers I talked about, almost perfectly matches the point where the series writing dropped. The new writers are not bad, but they were not the original architects. Ubisoft also stopped giving narrative leads real influence. That's when the foundation cracked. Now, what actually worked in the older games? First off, character evolutions. As I said earlier, Altair goes from arrogant rookie to wise assassin. Ezio grows across 3 whole games, aging with you the player. Connor's story revolves around his complicated relationship with Haytham. I remember reading that the writers of Assassin's Creed 3 cared so much about the story that they tied it directly to the real Mayan calendar, the same one linked to the 2012 end of the world theories. Without writing it that way, the game itself wouldn't have even existed. If you compare that passion to today's protagonists, these were by no means generic at all. They were characters who changed and matured. And we also need to mention the side characters, because that's one of the most important aspects to consider when writing great stories. Look at every single side character in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That's what you call well written. You can say the same with Sean and
I will say
Rebecca.
this too, now that I think about it, when it comes to like Naoe and Yasuke. Yasuke is the only person who actually had any form of development in that game. Like with Yasuke, his nature, they go through his backstory, things like that nature. You know, you experience him learning to become Yasuke, because that's not his real name. It's the name that he took on. You learn his experience of becoming a samurai. Abandoning being a servant to the Portuguese and just being a retainer to being a full-on samurai. With Naoe, she's just Naoe. I'm not saying to be like an insult, because I like both the characters, but Naoe doesn't really have any character growth. She's just Naoe. From beginning to end, she's just Naoe. Whereas like Yasuke, you see a start and end. Not really say like an end, but you see like a start to where he, from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, him kind of just changing, even when it comes to like his viewpoint on just society, because he was kind of part of the villain faction at the beginning of the game, right? So he became a part of the good faction pretty quickly, obviously, but that switch from being enemy to friend involves some form of development for the characters when that to happen.
Though technically they are still here. But Ubisoft are very adamant on moving away from the modern day and instead focusing on the shit show that is this bullshit. I think another one of the biggest issues comes down to the villains. Not a single one in the RPG era Assassin's Creed comes close to characters like Cesare Borgia, Rodrigo Borgia, Charles Lee, Haytham, Bartholomew Roberts, Governor Torres, or even Al-Mualim. The list goes on. Compare that to what we have now. Flavius, awful. Demos, awful. I mean, Valhalla at least had Basim and Alfred, but that's the exception, not the rule. It's also no coincidence that Darby McDevitt was the narrative director for Valhalla. You see what I mean? After that, Mirage had Kabiha. Does anybody even remember her? And then there's Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot who the villains were, except for Oda Nobunaga. They were just a bunch of mass nobodies that left no impact whatsoever.
And the thing there is, Oda's easy to remember. Is Oda one of the most well-known names when it comes to ancient Japanese people, at least for the West? That's one of the most known Japanese names.
Is the clearest downfall in the entire franchise. Even the memory corridors played a huge role. Those reflective, almost philosophical conversations were so essential to the writing. Now they've been completely scrapped. Why? To make the games more shallow and relatable for the lowest common denominator? It feels like the franchise has been dumbed down on purpose. And of course, there's the modern day. The modern day tied everything together.
Lucy, that was her fucking name. It just made me freaking head. Yeah, like I know people's names, it's just my brain just forgets to like mention them.
The franchise a backbone. You always knew why you were in the animus and what the bigger.
Like I saw her face, my brain just went Lucy. Remember earlier, I was like Christian Bale's character. That's what like the characters he remembered, and my brain just went Lucy.
Threat was. Once Ubisoft dropped that, the games lost that anchor. It's funny because they progressed the modern day in Valhalla, and that game seemed to finally move the modern day forward again. We had Basim now, but that just ended up being scrapped because Mirage had no modern day. Assassin's Creed Shadows modern day is better off not existing, and we now have to worry if Assassin's Creed Hexe will have a modern day at all. And last but not least is pacing. The past games were not scared to be shorter. I mean, Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood I think were both around 15 to 20 hours if you took your time. You did not get 40 hours of pure filler in between important story moments. That's why those games still feel meaningful in hindsight, because it's simply fat that never existed. It's really easy to point out Assassin's Creed and say, man, what happened to this franchise? But if you zoom out a bit, You'll notice the exact same issues are in every Ubisoft franchise today. This isn't just an Assassin's Creed problem, it's a Ubisoft problem as a whole. Look at Far Cry 6. I remember before that game came out, I thought it would be incredible. Giancarlo Esposito as the main villain, a beautiful world. But you know, once you get past that intro part, the story falls into the same pattern. Split the map into zones, pick whatever order you want, and slowly just grind. Far Cry 5 does also do that, but the difference is Far Cry 5 has a great base story. In Far Cry 6, the villain only shows up in pre-scripted cutscenes and doesn't actually react to you, which kills any tension. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora 2. I haven't played it personally, but I watched a playthrough. What I've gathered from my experience watching is it's got a fantastic world, but the story was weak. It's another checklist machine. It's like Far Cry but way weaker. And even Star Wars Outlaws. I dropped that game after 5 hours. It's the same blueprint all over again. It's like Ubisoft has become obsessed with making what you could call an anecdote machine. The idea is that you're supposed to make your own fun, but the problem is those anecdotes don't last. Gamers want the cool water cooler stories and a narrative that keeps you invested from start to finish. Instead, Ubisoft has leaned so hard into the do-it-your-own-way structure that the writing has become so bland. Everything gets stretched very thin because side content is treated like the...
You wanna know what that is? That is a game made for everyone situation, which, if you don't know what that saying is, a game made for everyone is a game made for no one. And the thought process is pretty much, if you make a game that's like, it doesn't have a core idea to it, a core storytelling, a core form of gameplay, and it's just like open slop so anyone and everyone can play it, the game ends up not having a soul. You know, and when it comes to Ubisoft's games, their games lack soul. Nowadays, at least. Because there is no focus on just telling a story and not trying to like bring in as much money as possible. That's why you make the games this way. You make the games this dumbed down and open world the way they make it, because you want as many people as possible to come play the game, and they think the customer is dumb, so there's something that you, the viewer, you, the customer, is too dumb to follow along the lines of freaking, you know, well-constructed storytelling or well-constructed freaking mission chains. They think you need to have this open world of prompts all over your freaking screen to tell you to go do this, and this, like you're doing freaking chores, and that's your game.
Main content, and by the time you finish, the story feels like a collection of errands. Now, to be fair, there are still bright spots. Valhalla had Alfred and Basim, who both turned out to be one of the better written antagonists in the series. Assassin's Creed Shadows had some personal quests for Naoe and Yasuke that actually hit harder than the main storyline, because would you look at that, they're written linearly. Stuff like the Nuno Caro pass with Yasuke, and Naoe's backstory with her father. But the fact that we have to point to side stories as the highlights kind of proves the point. The overall structure is broken. Okay, so we spent a lot of time breaking down how Assassin's Creed has lost its edge when it comes to storytelling, but let's not end on doom and gloom. The thing is, these problems can be fixed. Ubisoft already has the blueprint in the older games, and with a few smart changes they could bring back fantastic storytelling into the franchise. The first thing Ubisoft has to do is bring back a linear story spine. Look at past games like the Ezio trilogy, Assassin's Creed 3, Unity or Syndicate. Say what you want about those games, but at least the story had direction. Each sequence that you play...
Yeah, it's important to remember, I feel like with Ubisoft, Syndicate was kind of like an unfortunate situation where it got a bad flag because of Unity. Like, Syndicate is a good game, but because it came out after Unity, and Unity was like pretty much the poster child of what the fuck happened with Assassin's Creed, people just avoided Syndicate altogether. But fun thing about Unity is it's actually still a good game. It's just when it came out, it was a complete broken mess and no one could really play it. So, you know, and everyone knows this, that first impression is the only impression you're going to get. So if your game is utter shit at the beginning, unless you have like a freaking miracle, your game's dead. Get Battlefield. Battle 2042 died because it was not working. The only reason why Cyberpunk freaking had the chance to like fix itself was if people were invested enough in the actual core of the game to come back and give it a try when they did fix it. Unity didn't have that luxury. When Unity was being made fun of by Angry Joe and all these other content creators, it just became the punchline for a bad Assassin's Creed game because of nothing but, you know, the bugs and glitches that it had. It was a meme. The game became a meme because of the bugs and glitches. But the actual game itself, excluding some of the writing with at least, was a very, very good game and a very good story.
Followed the last. and the main protagonist carried over. You always knew what you were working towards. Compare that to Valhalla, where you can spend 40 hours knocking out disconnected regions and the main story just sits there frozen. Now, Ubisoft does not need to scrap the open world, they just need to start putting the main story as the focus and stop putting it on a giant checklist. A linear path is so simple but effective, and the best open world games out there all have linear stories. Another big one is scale. Ubisoft keeps making these massive bloated maps that take 60, 70, even 100 hours to clear, but bigger is not always better if the story cannot keep up. Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate are
it's a basic saying of less is more, quality over quantity.
Paris and London were so incredibly detailed in terms of design, but those stories could be finished in 20 hours without losing any impact. That's the sweet spot. Have 20 to 25 hours of memorable storytelling. This will always beat 70 hours of pure filler. Next, Ubisoft needs to rethink the dual protagonist system. It's an interesting idea, sure, but it rarely works in practice. In fact, it never works. They tried it with Syndicate, which I think kind of failed. Assassin's Creed Shadows proved that too. Naoe and Yasuke are both interesting in their own right.
I wouldn't say it never works because it has worked. It worked with GTA. GTA had 3 characters. You played as Franklin, Michael, and Trevor. It made it work. The thing that has to exist for this to work is good writers and good directing. The issue with Naoe and Yasuke when it comes to like them as individual characters is the game forces you to play a certain way with each person. So you can't really feel like an assassin with Yasuke. Like this is like you look at most people who like the game. One of the things they always complain about is whenever they want to like explore the world, they were forced to switch to Naoe because Yasuke can't explore the world. He's too stiff. He's too slow. He can't sneak. He falls. He breaks the ropes when he tries to climb the ropes. He can't freaking scale buildings and things like that. So it's like people didn't enjoy just playing as an assassin in Assassin's Creed when they're playing as Yasuke. And yes, Yasuke is not an assassin, which is kind of the point, but that decision to do that hurt the character on both fronts. At the same time, a lot of the mission structure kind of just seemed like they were not a joined team of characters, but they were separate. Like the game, it will be a conversation going on in the game of Gold, play as Yasuke or play as Naoe, and that was it. There was no, okay, well, if you're going to play as Naoe, Yasuke's going to go do this other mission that you can also have a chain attachment to. Like there was no chain missions of like, think about GTA again. In GTA, you be doing a quest as Michael, and there'll be a prompt on your like the bottom of your screen to switch to freaking Trevor, and the game will zoom out of Michael and zoom you into Trevor, who's already like halfway driving, and like now you're playing as Trevor doing the exact same mission. Now you're doing this. Now you get to a certain point of that mission, it takes you out of Trevor back to Michael or to freaking Franklin because they thought about the process. And that game's on 360. We're on PS5s and PS5 Pros and Series X and PCs, and Ubisoft can't do the same thing. It's not that dual protagonist doesn't freaking work. You just have to actually be good at making a freaking dual protagonist story. It's worked before. You can do it too.
But splitting the story down the middle left both of them underdeveloped. If they had made Naoe the only protagonist and Yasuke a strong supporting side character, kind of like a Leonardo from Assassin's Creed 2, the story would have had actual focus. You can't build 2 deep personal evolutions in the same space you would normally give one character room to breathe. You just don't have the resources or time to do that. Or maybe you do, but Ubisoft are lazy. Another huge piece of the puzzle is performance capture. Writing and motion capture go hand in hand. Think back to Brotherhood or Black Flag. The reason those emotional highs hit so well is because the actors had room to perform. It all worked because the characters did not feel like lifeless robotic puppets. Compare that to any other.
Telling you, like, said a lot. Some of the greatest video game acting you'll ever freaking see. It's freaking Bayek. Man, oh man. Bakar. Dude, what freaking he went in. He went fucking in.
Past 4 Assassin's Creed games, where almost every single dialogue scene felt robotic. You could write the best script in the world, but if the delivery looks dead, nobody's going to care. You know, it's funny because imagine if Hideo Kojima himself wrote the best story in the world, but you put his story and mix it with the modern Assassin's Creed cutscenes. It would look so terrible. Imagine if Death Stranding's cutscenes were replaced with what Ubisoft does. Oh my god. There's also the modern day storyline. Love it or hate it, it gives the franchise direction. These days, the modern day sections feel like afterthoughts. or Ubisoft just skips them entirely. You can tell they're trying their hardest to move on, especially after looking at what Assassin's Creed Shadows has. Without a proper modern day storyline, the historical side of Assassin's Creed feels isolated, like anthologies instead of chapters in one full saga. And then finally, Ubisoft has to face the people problem. During their peak, they had great writers steering the ship. These were the architects of the lore, the people who gave the franchise continuity. If they're serious about fixing this, they need to put experienced, narrative-focused people back at the top of the process. It's kind of sad when you think about it. Sam Lake, Hideo Kojima, Miyazaki, Neil Druckmann, and so many more. These are the creative faces of this.
You know what all people have in common? We know who they are. They are the ones in charge. And because they're in charge, because they're in charge of stories that are well written for the most part, we know who they are. I said it before. We know who Casey Hudson is. Why? Because he made one of the greatest science fiction games of all time. It wasn't just him, he was in charge. Mass Effect, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3. You could say, like, hey, wasn't he involved in Andromeda as well? And Anthem? Those two games were another victim of EA's negligence and dumb behavior to try to like force the hands of developers, not actually Casey or Mark Darrow's freaking fault. Whereas like with Bandai Namco, they didn't really force Miyazaki to do things, you know. And so he comes like with Kojima, and when Konami tried to force him, he left. It's like, fuck it, I'm gonna get somewhere else, and he did.
Studios. Gamers even look up to these people. Who the hell does Ubisoft have? Nobody. For years it was Patrice Désilets until, well, that whole situation happened. Maybe you can say Darby, but even then, he's quite reserved and barely works on things anymore. Oh, and they could even split responsibilities between their studios. Let Ubisoft Montreal handle the linear story-focused Assassin's Creed games, while Ubisoft Quebec focuses on the big experimental open world stuff. I do think both styles have their place, but they should not be mashed into the same formula. Montreal has the pedigree for tight stories, especially as Darby McDevitt is still there, and he's currently working on Assassin's Creed XA. Ubisoft Quebec has proven it can handle the larger RPG sandbox. Just play to each studio's strength, and the franchise will benefit, I promise. At the end of the day, the fix isn't complicated. Assassin's Creed does not need to reinvent itself whatsoever. It just needs to remember what made it special in the first place, and bring back great storytelling again.
And part of remake great storytelling is what? Not being afraid to tell your story. Great video, great video. So leave a like. As always, it will be linked in a chat and in the description box below for the YouTube portion of the stream. Yeah, a lot of that was nailed on the head. A lot of that was just nailed on the head. We yapped a lot during that video, though. I'll be honest. I definitely yapped a lot. There's a lot of me cutting in and out of, you know, the video to just talk. That's why I said that it's more of a video reaction, not reaction, but video response than a reaction. Yeah, let's get into some video